Just described is something that I rarely ever see. What I see is on page 38 of the schedule report, a graph that has a line and a little mountain in it.
Mm-hmm.
Then the risk analysis says your project's going to either be, if it's the GC pumping out the risk analysis, right on time, or if it's the owner running the risk analysis, 3.5 years late. Welcome to the Beyond Deadlines podcast, where we tackle challenges that planning and schedule leaders come across on a day-to-day basis. My name is Micah, and I'm a planning and scheduling manager for Intel.
My name is Greg Lawton. I'm the CEO of an AI schedule management company called Nelson Links.
Today, we're diving into risk management. Greg will present his risk analysis, and I will judge and review it. It's very hypothetical, and I'm looking forward to getting Greg on the hot seat. Greg, why don't you kick things off and just tell us a little bit about risk management presentations?
So to top level. Okay, well, there's a number of risk management presentations, but the most common ones and the most important ones that you'll find within a project, there's three of them. Four actually. Schedule risk analysis, which looks at the probability of finishing key milestones on time. A cost risk analysis, which looks at the probability of finishing key milestones on cost with the variability and the range that it could be dependent on different situations. Then you've got health and safety risk analysis. Technically, that was the additional one I added in. The fourth one is the overall commercial and contracting risk analysis. So this would include things like employment, political moves, communication, PR, etc. And these presentations are fundamentally geared towards two things. One is informing senior management of both the upside and the downside that they could face. And the second thing is to give them choices to decide what to pick. So for example, I could pick options that protect my downside, but also limit my upside. I could choose options that maximize my upside, but give me downside. Or I could try and do some kind of perfect match where I minimize my downside and maximize my upside. So I'll give you an example of something like this and for the viewers just to really get it cemented in your head. We could either buy concrete today and buy all of the concrete we need for the entire project, but concrete prices might go up, at which point we have protected our downside, but concrete prices might go down. So we've done the opposite. We've limited our upside. That's a static question. Another one could be, we're at risk of weather. So let's say a weather event delays the project by 2 months. That's just downside for me. What I could do is I could buy weather insurance for a fixed cost that completely negates that downside, which means that I'm only left with upside of things like acceleration, doing things faster. So risk management really here, it's actually best thought of in my mind as thinking about what banks do. It's a financial analysis on upside and downside. Micah, does that answer
What
the
you
question?
just described is something that I rarely ever see. What I see is on page 38 of the schedule report, a graph that has a line and a little mountain in it.
Mm-hmm.
Then the risk analysis says your project's going to either be, if it's the GC pumping out the risk analysis, right on time, or if it's the owner running the risk analysis, 3.5 years late.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we can take from that as you wish. I think in this that from what I've seen in the industry, risk management was a very immature function that has become mature very quickly. And I would say that there is a large spectrum of education. There are incredible risk managers that I've learned risk management from who, to be honest, could walk into the city and do stock trading if they wanted to. They're that good at it. And there's people who fell into risk management because project management was a bit too hard. So they, instead of filling out all 20 slides each month, they only have to fill out 2. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to sound harsh, but you know, everyone listening to this knows they've met both of those people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, should we crack on and dive into this risk presentation? What's your fictitious company name that we're doing this for?
Peepo Industries. I work for you. You're boss man.
Oh no. Oh no. I'm very
And
nervous
you've hired
now.
a lemon today.
Oh geez. All right. Throw this up. Let's rock and roll.
Okay. So just for everyone watching this, Micah challenged me to this about 3 minutes before this show. My slides normally look better than this. I have to caveat.
Oh, funny guy, funny guy.
Yeah,
Starting
funny
off the
guy.
jokes. What he doesn't know is I edit the episode, so this will be removed.
For everyone listening, I screenshotted Micah and just said a presentation for this guy, and it's Micah looking upset at the camera.
Yeah. I'm at Peepo Industries. We got to start getting into the black and cranking out that profit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, without further ado, proceed.
Okay. CEO, Mr. Peepo. I've done a risk analysis, and the project will be late. January 30th.
So for the viewers who aren't watching on video, one, subscribe to our YouTube and watch it on Spotify. We're doing a lot more of these series where you can follow along with us as we present. But all I'm seeing right now is a very small sentence that says the project will be late. And then in the middle, it says January 30th. What year is it? We'll never know. Greg, what year are we talking about here?
Oh, well, we're talking about 2025, obviously.
Okay. So when was the project supposed to be due? Because I got lots of projects. I'm CEO. We're building all over the place. I can't remember all the little details. So when was it supposed to be due?
Oh, this one was supposed to be due on January the 30th, but it will be late.
Okay. How
I've done
late?
the risk analysis, and the risk is not looking great, so we'll be past January the 30th.
How far past?
I don't know.
But if you've done a risk analysis, shouldn't you know how far past?
Yeah, but it's all about probabilities. You can't really say.
Can't really say.
That's like
Okay.
saying what cards am I going to get in my next hand at poker? I can't tell you, but I can tell you that you're probably not going to beat the house.
Right. So prior to me telling your manager that you need to go think about your future plans, if you put yourself in my shoes for a second, what information would you think I need as instead of just a date on a screen?
Shall I go on to my next? Let's imagine that I've gone back and rethought my hiring plans and decided I do want to keep my job at Peepo Industries.
Okay.
Shall I go on to a
Well,
different
yeah,
thing?
exactly. And what I think I'm looking for before we transition is probably the date potentially it was supposed to be due, the date you are now forecasting it to be due, and any sort of data, reasoning, or logic that's showing us why it's going to potentially finish in that avenue, and then potential mitigations. But yes, let's continue. Let's say I gave you that advice, coached you up. I'm not going to fire you yet. Proceed.
You're a generous man. Thank you very much. I would not have been so forgiving.
Here at Peepo Industries, we're all about growing talent.
Even if that talent starts out in the ground. Okay, so I've gone away.
That's where all flowers start, Greg. That's where all flowers
True,
start.
that
in
is
the ground.
true. That is true. Right. So I've run an industry standard Monte Carlo simulation. I've made the ranges so that it applies to this project. I won't go into the detail, but I've made sure there isn't merge bias, and I've made sure there isn't extreme zeroing effects. The simulation shows there's a 92% probability, based on our current productivity rates, of finishing later than the planned completion date of August the 23rd. Based on the simulation, there is a 50% chance that we'll finish in November and an 80% chance that we'll finish by the end of January. We
Mhm.
normally contract at a P80 position. So we're looking here at a contractual slip from August to January.
August to January. Okay, so 6 months would be the delay?
September, October, November, December, January, 5.
5 months. 5 month delay. Okay. The source of delay that is happening, will this be our fault or will this be covered contractually through LDs or something else?
What's an LD?
A delay, a late delay.
Oh no, I just press button on software.
Okay. Button presser of software. So you couldn't describe to me how I will be able to trust this data then.
I started out good by saying this is based on past productivity rates. So I've taken the
Sure.
productivity rates of the different teams and work breakdown structures, and I've morphed them into the schedule. So the settings that I've inputted are reflective of our performance to date. If our performance changes, so we become more productive, these dates will pull left. I don't know how much though.
Do we know any ranges of productivity or anything we can do to help out this scenario?
Would you like me to go on to the other ones like I've done another good job, or shall I still pretend
Yeah,
like I'm
and
a
I
fool?
think it's just I think I forgot to describe the chart I was seeing. It's basically your standard risk chart that shows your distribution of delivery dates. And then there's a little graphic in the upper hand, left hand that just describes what Greg said initially. And so while better than the previous one, this still for someone who's a CEO would be a struggle to understand. Most, I would say, people outside of the construction industry and even inside the construction industry cannot read a risk histogram chart, which I think it just opens up the door to a lot of unnecessary questions and a lot of unnecessary dialogue where you start losing the trust of the audience because you're expecting them to understand this. Honestly, what you'd probably see in like a math textbook type thing. But yes, let's keep cruising. Let's get to example number 3.
Wonderful. So I'll present. Let's say I've said the same thing again. So I've run a simulation. The simulation has inputs that are reflective of the productivity that we're producing today. That simulation, what it does is it adjusts the duration of our activities and based on the productivity. Because of that, there is a 50% chance of finishing in November, which is 3 months late, and an 80% chance, an 80% chance of finishing before the end of January, so up to 5 months late. We modeled this for all of the key milestones, and the thing driving that slippage is the variability in productivity. Some teams are being very productive, others aren't. If we're able to get that variability down to a plus or minus 20% from forecast, we'll be back on track with all of our key milestones. I've analyzed all the different teams, and we've isolated construction as the one driving this variability. At the moment, construction activities take on average 73% longer than the team forecast, but it can range up to 400% longer. It is that variability that is driving our end dates out. Because of this, I would like to ask for your approval to go to the construction team and find out what is driving that level of productivity and variability, and come back to you with some investment actions where we can make it less and get our milestones back on track.
Much better, Greg. Thank you. I knew I hired you for a reason. I just had my son, who's the secretary of our company. I have a family business here, and he's extremely excited because it's Super Bowl Sunday and he's a massive Chiefs fan. So go Chiefs, which also makes us a Taylor Swift fan. And like most CEOs, I listen to probably about half of what you said, and then I will just create some really wise words after that. So can you go back one slide?
Sure.
Can you explain to me the line chart really quickly?
So the line chart here, what I've got is our projects. The most important thing in our projects is our level 1 milestones. We are paid based on our level 1 milestones. Cash comes in the door when we achieve these. The yellow line is the level 1 milestones forecast at a pH position, so 8% probability of these dates occurring. And it shows that profiled over time with the delivery dates being much later. The blue line is our baseline. That is what we've actually contracted, and that is how our cost model is based up. So we're expecting cash flows coming in at that point. You can see that the yellow line is much later than the blue line, which will create cash issues for this business. The green line is with the risk mitigation actions implemented and successful. The green line is not perfectly overlapped with the blue, but it's within variability that we can cope. So what I'm showing here is unmitigated risk, which is yellow, and mitigated risk, which is green, against the profile of our milestones that we've agreed in the baseline.
Excellent. What is it going to cost me to bring those lines together?
I can't tell you that right now because I don't know the source of what is driving this variability and low productivity. I need your approval to go into the construction team and do that survey and find that out. I'll be able to come back to you in about 2 weeks and give you the top drivers of the lack of productivity.
Just off the top of your head, though, what sort of drivers would you initially think are going to be there when that report comes back?
From my experience, the top 3 drivers are coordination. So for example, tools being available, job cards being available, and instructions being available at the time that the team needs to start executing. The second, if we're doing outside works, will be weather. So weather can have a very large impact on this kind of thing. And the third will be actually availability of access, equipment, permits, or people. So typically the start date of activities can be pushed out significantly, or the duration of activities can be pushed out when the actual core permits or access can't occur.
Now, thank you very much, Greg. I'd like you to keep me updated on how it goes. I approve your request to go analyze the construction team. And if anything arises between now and then, please escalate. This project is extremely critical to our portfolio, and I'd like to know how we're trending on it.
Wonderful.
And I'm not going to fire you yet.
Yeah,
but if you
to be honest, I look at this presentation and think this is distinctly average. We can talk about what a top notch one would be.
Yeah, one of these days we're gonna have to do our homework prior to the episode and bring in something that wasn't created in 6 minutes.
6 minutes beforehand, with a crying baby in the background.
Oh, yeah, you got a crying baby. My son came in because that game. He's all pumped up, and my daughter had a football helmet on when she walked by my office window. Listen, folks, we keep it low budget here so we can provide you value. We take all money we receive, which is nothing, and we put it back into the business. And that's why you have crying babies and children who are excited for the Super Bowl.
Look, I would like to speak on risk for a moment, like for the listeners, and you know, after working essentially in risk for over a decade now. As I said, the purpose of risk is a financial one. The purpose is to limit downside and maximize upside. That's the purpose. So number one is you need to understand how the project will achieve success. Is it financial? Is it political? Is it whatever? You need to understand success from the key people. And then when you go and do these kinds of presentations, actually, I broke one of my core rules, the pyramid principle. I would have just gone in and gone, Micah, it's lovely to see you. Look, I need one thing for you today. I need you to authorize me going spending 2 weeks with the construction team. The reason for that is based on the current productivity rates, they're looking like they might slip the delivery date. I need to go in there and understand why and come back to you with some mitigation actions. I'd have just gone straight in with that, and then I'd have had a presentation if I'd needed to. The other element that I'd say on these risk charts is that risk, there's this saying in risk, which is risk is everyone's responsibility. Yes and no. Of course, risk is project manager's responsibility and engineer's responsibility, but they're there to consider the variability within their specific domain. If you're in there as a risk manager or a schedule risk manager, it's your job to consider the whole and basically hold yourself to account for the performance, downside or upside of everything. So I would actually say you need to be on top of all of the data and on top of the modeling. And to be honest, know the techniques to get things off the books. So for example, I'll give you a perfect example of an incredibly bad risk register. 10 risks. 9 of them value 10,000 if they happen. 1 value $1 million if it happens. Therefore, all of them, let's say, are 20% probability. Therefore, we need a risk budget of 200k. Like, what kind of rubbish are you talking about there? Because either 9 of them happen and you've got over 100k left over and you're like, that's cool, or the 1 million happens and you're massively under budget. What should happen is you have a risk register of equal amounts. So I'd have the 9. And then you go to Zurich or AXA or someone else and you buy insurance. And you get it off your books. No one wants to sit there with a million francs, euros, or dollars of risk on their balance sheet. So you get that off. That is about limiting the downside.
Yeah, my favorite risk registers that I see, mostly just in America, are these lists of just random items going down. That it's actually like 20 or 30 of them. It's anything on the project manager's or project team's mind that they think won't happen. And then they just fill out a sheet of all these things. I'm not going to get this permit. This design's not going to be done in time. This equipment's not going to show up in time. Going down, 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 down. Then you, in the right-hand column, you say low, medium, high. And then you just multiply. And then the cost is just a guesstimate. So this equipment doesn't show up. It'll cost me 1.5 million. Every number is perfectly round and either 500K, 1 million, 1.5 has zero tie to the schedule. And there's actually no further analysis done and very little mitigation can be done. And most often than that, because a lot of times they're naming problems that are gravity problems that in and of itself, if there's no mitigation to it at all, does it actually belong on a risk register and should be tracked as the hottest item? And then on the flip side of that, there's nothing that's brought in that isn't just an idea of someone's in their gut of what they're feeling. So no one's actually looking at the schedule and saying, where is this risk in the schedule? How does this tie back into it? Those are my favorite, least favorite risk registers.
You're spot on there. For me, it's about lethality. And before all the risk managers start emailing me aggressively saying that, well, there's probability involved and, the actual impact equals probability times.
Leave a comment on our YouTube page or on LinkedIn if you're going to get in contact with Greg. It actually helps our show out.
Criticality equals impact times probability. That's kind of what they'll say. But you got to think about it this way. It's like, my job is to maximize upside and minimize downside. Okay. Do I care if my wife spends a tenner a day on food? No, that's not going to break the bank. Do I care if the house catches fire and I have no house insurance? That will put me on the street. Like, a little bit of annoyance versus my newborn baby is on the street. They are very, very different things. So I personally look for lethality. So I I'd go to project managers and say, you're only allowed to tell me two things. What are the two things that you'll be fired for? Like, if these go wrong, you are out of the door because you are the most incompetent project manager you could possibly be. And you know what? They will know what those are, and they will
Yeah.
already be managing them. But it's about making
Yeah.
aware. So, for example, if they've gone, well, actually, I forecast that we can get this done by next month, but I totally forgot to include weather. And if, that could put us off by 2 weeks, I'd be like, cool. Like, do I really care that Dave didn't turn up, or that, this equipment broke a little bit? It's like,
I love a $2
money
billion
can solve those
job, and
problems.
there's a risk in there for $100K.
Yeah, it's like, I don't care. What is the thing that is going to get us both fired? Yeah.
How about we just sell the project's copiers and make up that $100K?
How about I ask everyone really nicely to turn up 20 minutes before their shift and work for 20 minutes extra, and that's probably worth about 4 million. So we'll just do that.
Yeah,
That's generosity of people.
A couple of those $100K risks covered.
Exactly. But I think to conclude here, risk is something that's not really understood by people because it's not explained to people very well. And if there's one thing that people take away, it is minimize downside, maximize upside. It's the same as investing. And what we're looking for are, what are the things that are going to kill us and put us on the street? And what are the things that could make us win the lottery and retire early? Those are the two things we're looking for. Yes, I will have lots of project managers emailing me saying, death by 1,000 cuts and the straw that broke the camel's back of all of those 100K. Yeah. Fine. I will hire someone to deal with all of that itty-bitty day-to-day.
Yeah.
But as a top manager, I care about what's going to kill me, what's going to make me rich. And if you think about it that way, suddenly projects look very different.
I think you can take that thinking into how you're operationalizing and performing risk. Because if the process isn't working for you on those two items, then the process isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
It's something where you want to look at how you're actually building your risk systems and utilizing them. And risk is a great place for people to chip in as well. I said that'd be my final thoughts is if you're in scheduling, you're naturally going to get pulled into risk, and that'll help you learn more about project management, more about cost management, more about financial management. So I would highly recommend people go into that area and help support it on the team, because a lot of people will not want to support it, not want to help out on it. And it's a great place to build your skill set up. And risk managers are, a very hot commodity, very hot job right now.
Very good risk managers. And what I would add to that, I think you're entirely correct. Schedulers who have understood the build of the schedule will naturally know schedule risks that other people don't know. And they may feel obvious to you, but they are not going to be obvious to someone else who didn't build the schedule. So they would go, oh, well, this is the critical path, and isn't that it? And you'd be like, well, no, we've assumed that we've got 20 cranes. I only saw 5 this morning, and that's a real big problem. You will know things that other people don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, folks, that is it for us this week on Beyond Deadlines. We thank you for tuning in. If you could do us a couple favors, click the subscribe button, share with your friends. We do this every Sunday, and we thoroughly enjoy it, and we're trying to grow the audience. We do this completely for free because we just want to share new techniques, old techniques, knowledge, anything that's going to help you become a better planner, scheduler, project manager. We have 2 newsletters that we send out, one on LinkedIn, one through email. Check them out. The one through email provides jobs and tips. The one on LinkedIn is a deep dive into what we're talking about. So for us at Beyond Deadlines, have a great week.